Hey there, my name is Carlton here at Marysville Martial Arts in Marysville, Washington, and here are the 11 questions you must ask before joining a martial arts school. The good news is there's a lot of great martial arts schools out there. The bad news is there's just as many questionable ones. So make sure you always ask these questions so you know exactly what you or your family are getting into. Number one, the first question, one of the most obvious that everybody asks, is how much is your tuition? Really important question. We all have a budget. We all have to live within that budget. But more important than tuition is what are my total cost? Because a lot of times you're going to find schools with tuition that looks like, hey, that's very affordable. You try out some classes, you're ready to go, and now you find out every 2-3 months there's tests and there's fees for that sometimes. So they add on to that average monthly tuition. Sometimes there's annual federation fees that go to a larger federation. Make sure if they're doing that, what are you getting for that? What's the actual value to you? Sometimes they require you to upgrade your uniform every time you move from, say, beginner to intermediate to advanced. Sometimes there's required seminars or workshops you must attend before you can advance. There's all types of things schools do to bring in revenue, and that's okay, but you really want to make sure you're asking the right questions, because a lot of times schools, they will tell you the tuition, you get excited, you show up, you sign up, and then you realize it cost you a lot more than you thought it was going to. So where do we stand on this? Our tuition is simple. It's one flat monthly fee. There's no fees when you test, no annual federation fees. If your uniform gets worn out and tired, you'll probably want to buy a new one. If you're learning staff or nunchucks, something like that, you'll probably want to purchase some to practice with at home. There's no required events, no required seminars. The tuition we give you, the fee we give you, is all you're required to pay each and every month. Number two, am I going to have to sign a contract? A lot of people hear the word contract and say, whoa, bad news. I used to feel the exact same way, but after being a school owner for 30 years, I understand it's a bit more nuanced than that. And here's what I mean. There's some great schools out there, they say no contracts. That means two things. They're not getting a promise from their students to pay tuition, and they're not making any promises to their students to actually perform the services they said they would perform, which is teaching you martial arts, providing a clean, safe facility, and being open when they say they're going to be open. And that's extremely important. Most schools that last do have some sort of contract, or we often like to say membership agreement. It's a contract. Agreement just sounds nicer. But those are important. Things you want to check, though, are what are the additional fees that I'm agreeing to, signing up for, that I may not have thought to ask about, and I'm just skimming over the fine print like most of us do. What are my rights to cancel? What if you close up or don't perform? There's a lot of things. Are you able to sell this contract to somebody? It used to be very popular early on, and I did this when I first opened my school and regretted it. You would sign somebody up for a year. At the time, it was $100 a month, so $1,200. Then you would sell that membership or that contract to a third party for $900. You get money up front, they assume the risk. The downside is when that student's ready to quit, you can't handle that in the way you would want to because somebody else owns the paper on that. And that student leaves, and now there's a collection agency going after them, and they will collect on you, or they will go after you a lot. And it tarnishes the reputation of the school, and it hurts the students. So you really want to be aware of what are the collection clauses, what are the assignment or their ability to resell those memberships, what are the extra fees. And any membership agreement or contract in Washington State that's over 1 year, just beware that here, that's illegal. So where do we stand on all of this? After your introductory program, where you have plenty of time to decide if our program is right for you or your children, we have a straightforward membership agreement. We require a 90-day commitment at the beginning, 60 days notice to cancel. You can pause your membership for up to 30 days a year. Number three. Another question you want to ask is, what are your school's hours? Not just what are your class times, but what are the school's hours? Class times are easy. The reason you want to ask the school hours is if classes start at 4 every day and the school opens at 4, that means the instructor maybe has another job, something else he's doing, and he's rushing in to teach classes, even if they open at 3:30. You'll see this a lot in smaller schools where one person is trying to teach classes and answer phones and welcome and sign up new members, and they're trying to do everything. And you see that a lot with part-time schools. These guys are working hard, they're doing their best, they're working all day, maybe another job, and they show up to teach martial arts because they love it, but they wind up getting stretched thin, and I can tell you from personal experience early on, that doesn't last long and stay successful as a school. 4, this next question is really important, but also a bit nuanced, and it's a multi-parter. The first thing you want to ask is how long you've been in business. Now this is tricky because every great martial arts school was brand new at one time. There was a point in every school's journey, they were open for 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. It's important to know, especially if a school is newer, it's their first endeavor trying to run a martial arts school, there's a lot of pitfalls that come with that, but every great school started somewhere. But you want to follow up with, how long have you been under the current ownership? There's schools out there, they've been open 15 years, they've changed owners 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. That's a really big deal, and that's a bit of a red flag, something you want to watch out for. And the other part of this question is, how long at your current location? Again, there's schools that have been open 10, 15, 20 years, and they've changed locations over and over again. Sometimes this is great. Sometimes they're moving from smaller location, bigger as they grow. Some schools move from medium-sized to small to larger to small, and that points to a bit of instability. So that's something you kind of want to keep an eye out for as well. How long have they been in business? How long under the current ownership? And how long at the current location? So where do we stand on all this? I opened this school here in Marysville, Washington in 1996. We've been in the same building the entire time. In 2007, we purchased the property, expanded our facilities. My wife has a music school on one end of the building. We are a fixture in the community and have no plans on going anywhere. Number 5. The next question you want to ask, which you often don't have to ask because it's usually plastered all over their website, is can I try a free class? Now this sounds like a great idea, and for adults it often is, for teens sometimes it is, but for children it's really not. And the reason is, kids need more time. They may show up to one class, their first class be extremely shy, not want to get out on the floor, but they've gotten a chance to watch and see what's going on. Second class, maybe they warm up and they're willing to get on the floor. Maybe by the third time, they're loving it. On the flip side, maybe your child shows up, they have the best class ever, they have so much fun, and then the second class, third class, fourth class, after you've already signed a membership agreement, is not something they want to do. It's not something they enjoy. Maybe you see some things you don't like. It's important that kids get the time they need to try the activity and absolutely make sure they love it before you commit to it. There's generally 2 types of schools that offer the one free class. There are the well-meaning schools that think it's a great way for you to come in, no cost, and try out the program, but they just don't understand that kids need more time. And then there's the schools that understand very clearly that one class often isn't enough. They know when you show up, that's going to be the most fun class in the world because there's a new student they're trying to sign up. And then right after class, you're going to get a high pressure or emotional pitch with your child standing there. You know, little Johnny had so much fun. Do you want to sign him up so he can keep doing this? It's sad, but it happens. So one free class sounds like a great idea, but it's not always. So where do we stand? At the time we're filming this video, we do a 4-week intro, 8 classes to try it out. You can cancel anytime, 100% money back guarantee. It includes the uniform, some training shoes, online orientation course for parents, everything you could possibly need to get started. And if you don't love it, we're going to give you every penny back and you get to keep everything. Number 6, another great question to ask is, how do you separate your classes? Most schools are going to say we have a children's class, an adults class, maybe a teen class in the middle. Sometimes they'll do a preschool, school age, maybe teenagers and adults together. But what you're going to see on their schedule is children, intermediate, children, advanced, children, beginners. And that sounds like a great idea, but even within that kindergarten through 6th grade range, having all of those kids grouped together is going to be very difficult. The reason is you may have a 1st grade green belt and a 5th grade green belt, and they're going to learn completely differently. They're going to have different learning needs, different emotional needs, different physical needs at that stage of their life. So it's important that they're not just breaking things up by levels of belts. Instead, you want to find a school that is breaking things up into more focused, age-appropriate learning groups. So where do we stand on this? We were really intentional when we broke up our classes by learning levels. We have pre-K, which is 3, 4, and 5 years old, not yet in kindergarten. We have kindergarten through 2nd grade, and 3rd through 5th grade or 6th grade, depending on which school district you're coming from, because some local districts, at least at the time when we're filming this video, have 6th graders at the elementary level. Some of them have them at the middle school level. After that, we have a class that's middle school through adult. We find once kids are in that middle school range, they're usually ready to start working with an older crowd, at least having an older crowd to look up to for a good example. Number 7. Another really important question to ask is how long does it take to get each belt, and how long does it take for me to get my black belt? And this is a bit of a trick question. And the reason is there's no way for them to know. There's no way for a school to know how you learn, how you perform physically. Are you able to memorize the material? How often are you going to be able to practice? So anybody that gives you a definitive answer right off the bat, it takes 3 years to get a black belt at our school. We test for new belts. You get a new belt every 2 months. It's something to really, really be wary of. How long does it take to progress at our school? As long as it takes. We have students come in that are extremely talented and focused and maybe done other arts, and they can move up a little quicker. We have some people come in, have never done anything before. It's new to them. They're just figuring out this whole physical movement thing, this brain-body connection. On average, if I had to give an average and you were to train consistently and always be on class, maybe 3 years, it's honestly going to be closer to 5 or 6 years. And that's okay, because one thing you're going to learn here quickly is that outside any school's doors, the belt around your waist, it really doesn't matter. It's just a measure of your progress within that school. It's a way for you, especially young kids, to learn to set goals and meet them by achieving smaller goals. Other than that, to be frank, the belts really aren't that important. Number 8, another question you want to be sure to ask that a lot of people have a hard time asking is, what are your qualifications and what are your coach's qualifications? What are the other instructors on your floor's qualifications? For some reason, people are afraid to ask this, but if you're going to be paying somebody to impart knowledge on you, trusting them with your physical well-being a lot of times, you're going to want to know what gives them the qualifications to do the things they say they're going to do. A lot of schools love to utilize volunteers that haven't been through training programs, unfortunately. A lot of schools require students to teach in order to get their black belt, but just because you've been there a certain amount of time doesn't mean you're ready to teach. A lot of schools, I understand this happened early on with me, not with great results. You're a single person operation. You're overwhelmed. The phone is ringing. New people are coming in. You have some great students. You look around. You take the one with the highest rank. You put them in the front of the class and say, hey, warm up class. And then you get busy and they wind up teaching half the class. Problem with that is, just because they've been there the longest doesn't mean they're the best. So you really want to make sure you understand the credentials that the teachers have, that the owner has, that the coaches have. What makes us qualified? When I started my first training, it was under the son of one of the actual creators of Taekwondo, Kim Bok-man. Trained with him for many years, was certified as an international instructor. In 2019, I was certified as an international instructor by Kim Bok-man himself. I've achieved level 7 or fully qualified instructor in the Tabawara Balintawak system. To do that, you must bring somebody all the way up to level 6 and show that you can actually teach before they'll let you call yourself an instructor. Besides that, I've trained other arts that don't necessarily have ranking systems. They don't do the belts. They don't have certifications. So there's a lot of things I've learned and incorporated that don't come with certifications to teach. And beyond that, I've spent the past 30 years studying not just martial arts, but teaching methodology, a movement methodology, how to teach kids specifically. It's an ongoing continuing education aside from the certifications, which honestly, in my mind, aren't as important as what people are doing between the certifications. In our staff, we use volunteers on the floor to hold pads and do stuff so they can see and learn how to be leaders and teachers. Before they can do that, there's a 4-hour course they must take just to show up and hold pads. All of our instructors go through instructor training, and all of our main coaches are all paid. We don't rely on volunteers for our core team. We will just have volunteers that will come in and help our core team. Number 9, always, always, always ask if the teachers and the entire staff at the school has had a background check. It seems obvious, but a lot of schools don't do this. Why? Because as the owner, they know they've never committed a crime. They've had a lot of their students that people maybe volunteer or work for them, they've grown up around. And so they've known these people their whole lives. But it's important for you that hasn't known that instructor, hasn't known those kids, to be absolutely sure. Unfortunately, there's been some very shady things in the martial arts industry. There have been some instructors that have gone to jail. It seems unthinkable, but it absolutely happens. Where do we stand? I run background checks on all my coaches, any other person working here, and myself every single year. Why do I run one on myself? I know I haven't committed a crime, but I want to make sure that when somebody asks, somebody comes to my front desk and says, do you do background checks on your staff? I can open up a folder and say, absolutely, here they are, including myself. 10, I love this question, but I'm biased. We walk into a lot of schools and they say life skills, integrity, discipline, respect. Every school, just about, especially schools that teach kids, claim to teach life skills of some point. And I think that's wonderful. I think martial arts schools are in the perfect position to do that. It fits right in with what we do with our school culture. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't do it intentionally. A lot of times you'll ask them, do you teach life skills? Yes. What life skills? They'll give you a list. Then you need to look them in the eye and ask them, how? How do you teach life skills? Unfortunately, there's a lot of old school thinking that discipline, perseverance, indomitable spirit, all these things are a byproduct of training. And yes, showing up and working hard and never missing class and always working your best will always build those things, but it's not necessarily teaching those things. A lot of these words, kids have no idea what they mean. They're learning these concepts without really understanding. So instead of this idea that, oh, that's a part of the martial arts, which basically means they'll learn all these things by osmosis, you need to make sure they have a very specific plan, a very specific way they teach the things they say they're teaching. How do we teach life skills? We use our Warrior Words character development program. It has monthly themes, monthly projects for the kids, and 2 chats every week that our coaches study and practice so that when they're talking to the kids, they know what to say, what questions to ask, how to get children involved in the conversation so they understand these concepts that we are reinforcing in class. And to be straightforward, for many years we used the Powerful Words program that was developed by Dr. Robin Silverman and her husband Jason Silverman. They are absolutely amazing. If you're a school owner that is looking for a way to teach life skills in a legitimate way so you can do what you say you do, look them up. They have, their program is much more in depth than ours. We used it for years, and our program draws a bit of inspiration off of it. We just found that after 8, 9 years of using the program, there's a lot of things we had to tweak to fit our specific culture. And it wound up working for us that we could redo the chats and the projects in a way that fit our school. But the Powerful Words program is hands down the best character development program I've seen for kids out there, whether it's in the martial arts space or the dance space. So if you're a school owner and you want to teach these things legitimately, definitely look up Dr. Robin Silverman, Jason Silverman, and Powerful Words. Number 11. It seems strange, but there's a lot of schools that don't allow visitors and they don't allow parents to watch the kids. And the reason they a lot of times say is it's a big distraction. And I'll be honest with you, we have a lot of chairs set up for parents and it can become a distraction. Sometimes you'll get sideline coaching parents. Sometimes you'll get the kids that love to run over to their parents every so often. But it's up to the schools to learn how to handle that and deal with that. For them to say, oh, it's a distraction and you can't watch, to me is very, very, very strange. A lot of schools will have a glass you have to wait behind. That's great because it minimizes distractions. Some schools will have chairs set up, and some schools will flat out tell you, you are not allowed to watch your child in class. That is something to be really, really wary of. How does our school fit into this? We always have 20, 30 chairs set up for parents. We also have strict policies. If you sideline coach more than once or twice, we're going to ask you not to sit in on classes. If your child keeps running over to you for reassurance every 3 or 4 minutes, we're going to ask you to, hey, maybe a couple classes, let's try you not watching, and you can go down to this area as well, and you can actually watch it on our cameras so you can still see what your child is doing in class, but you're not that distraction. Because some kids, they default to the need for reassurance when they really, really don't need it. And sometimes you'll get the parents that really like to chatter. We ask them to please step out. And the saddest is when a child looks over the viewing area because they want to see how proud their parent is, and they're looking at their phone. So while we love to have visitors, we try to avoid distractions, and we encourage you to please stay off your phone. Number 12. Another great question to ask is, how many locations do you have? A lot of times in our minds we have this more is better idea, but in martial arts it's often and usually not. I started off at a martial arts school, had one location, trained with the master and all the top students, and then he left, and then another wonderful teacher took over, learned from him for a little bit, went back to the master, trained with him. I think I was the third school to open. I'd have to go back and check, it's been a lot of years. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, I think we got up to 8 or 9 schools. It was great. We took a lot of pride in our program. But even in an organization where all the instructors took a lot of pride, you see what you see in a lot of organizations. As they grow, the quality goes down. The quality goes down because as they're growing, now they have these multiple schools come together and test, and the instructors on this panel of testers don't always know what's that person's ability, what struggles did they overcome. Wow, that guy that looks amazing, is he actually being really lazy today and doesn't deserve to pass? It becomes very cookie cutter. It becomes cookie cutter a lot of times because the person that started the organization, as the schools grow and students test and pay testing fees, they get a pretty large cut of it. And so there's a lot of, or I should say there's not enough incentive for these schools to maintain that quality. Usually the more schools there are, the quality tends to drop. You see this in smaller chain schools, and you see this especially in martial arts franchises. What about us? One location since 1996. We bought the building and property in 2007. We have a large enough facility and no desire to open more. 13. Another really good question to ask is, are you part of an association or even more so a franchise? So let's look at associations first. A lot of schools you're going to walk up to, you're going to see a really cool logo on the door. They're part of a professional martial arts association. There's dozens of them out there. What this really means is they're paying a group for marketing support, maybe curriculum ideas, coaching on how to run a successful school, and they're getting this thing that says, oh, now we're professionals, but it often has very, very little to do with the actual martial arts, and it's actually just a cost that they're passing on to you. So if you see they're a part of an association, ask them, what benefit does that bring me directly? If it says, oh, it makes us better teachers, this and that, they should be doing that anyway if they have your best interest in mind. Federations are a little bit different. Sometimes federations, they oversee like a specific martial arts organization. Those can be great too, but sometimes there's fees, $120, $200, $240 a month that you're gonna have to pay. And a lot of times you get nothing in return other than like a patch and a sticker, maybe an ID card that says you're part of that federation. But again, it brings you no direct benefit that you wouldn't already get by going to a school that doesn't have an association or a federation. Sometimes they'll have apps with learning materials, stuff like that, which are awesome. Most of that you can still find on YouTube as well. You just have to dig a little bit more. So ask yourself, if they have a federation or an association, is it worth it? And franchises. You want to ask if they're a franchise because there are not very many good martial arts franchises out there, to be frank. Most of them are absolute garbage. We had one try to open up in town here. Gentleman, no martial arts experience, bought a bunch of licenses, opened a bunch of schools, a bunch of people signed up, a bunch of people paid a lot of money up front. They disappeared in under a year, year and a half, depending on their exact location. So you want to know if they're part of an association, a franchise, a federation, and what extra that's going to cost you, and what benefit does it actually bring to you. So where do we fit into all of this? We're independently owned and operated and not part of any governing organization that is going to dictate the high or usually lower standards that we must keep up with. When we first started in 1996, I was part of a group of schools, started to grow. We had a federation. We paid federation fees. The students paid fees. We're supposed to get a lot of support back, a lot of quality control, and everybody quickly realized that all this money going to the Federation was strictly to feed the family of the person who called themselves a federation. So that was my first real negative experience with an association or a federation, and I knew then to really be wary of anybody else that we ever became involved with. Over the years, we've had loose-knit relationships. We've got some tighter-knit relationships now, but nothing we advertise, nothing we push onto our students, nothing that we display stickers in the window, and definitely not something we're going to charge extra for. 14. Another really common question is, what type of martial arts do you teach? And this can be important or not important at all. Here's what I mean. If you're an adult, if you know, I want boxing, I want jiu-jitsu, I want Muay Thai, I want Taekwondo, I want karate, I want this specific thing, then ask. Definitely ask. Especially for kids, the style doesn't matter as much. What really matters is that they get in there, learn to love the activity, learn to love working hard, learn to love physical activity, so it's something they can continue to do for the rest of their life, whether they're at this school or another school. Quick story. I grew up for some reason, never liked soccer, didn't like soccer players, didn't like soccer. Everything soccer for some reason just repulsed me. I had no idea why. When my mother was in her 70s, I asked her, why didn't I like soccer? Do you have any idea? It came on TV and I said, oh, I don't like soccer. She said, why? I said, you tell me. It turned out when I was 4, she took me to a coach on the military base to learn to play soccer. And he wouldn't let the parents watch. And she felt funny about it because I never reacted properly when she picked me up. So she went up on the hill to watch. And you had this coach that was coaching little children, screaming, yelling, cursing, berating. It was a horrible experience for all the kids. She saw that and pulled me right out. I don't even remember it, but all I knew is I grew up disliking soccer. So we want to make sure kids get in here and absolutely love the martial arts. When you do ask what style people teach, follow up with this. What makes that better than the other styles? If they go on and on why their martial art is superior, that's a bit of a thing to worry about, because frankly, the martial art that's best for you or you is going to be different. It depends on how much you work, what you take to, what you like. There is no answer which martial arts style is best. So ask them what styles they teach, and then ask them, how does that compare to the other styles here in town or around the area? And sit back and listen to what they say. If it's a lot of braggadocious, our style is the best, that might be something you want to be pretty wary of. 15. Do you award kids black belts? This can be a good thing, this can be a bad thing. There's a couple ways you want to approach this. First, ask them, hey, do kids at your school earn black belts? And listen to what they have to say. A lot of schools will do this. We do this. We have what's called a Kung Fu for Kids black belt, which means they can move up to that level, and now they have completed the beginner level of our teen and adult curriculum, which is much more complex. There's a lot more involved there. For us, we really emphasize that that belt only means something here at our school. It's not a certification that you now have to go register your hands or something silly like that. It just means you've met these curriculum requirements. And that's all any belt or any black belt at any school really does mean. You also want to ask them, is the curriculum that children use to get the black belt the same as the curriculum the adults use to get the black belt? If it is, that's something you want to be a bit wary of. Because a lot of the stuff in martial arts, no matter how talented a child is, they're not ready to really fully understand or conceptualize it. A lot of schools, you get the ego, we don't water down our art for anybody. That tells me they don't really understand the steps it takes to teach children and how children progress. This is no longer the feudal area. This is not communist China where they can force children into being great at martial arts. It doesn't work that way, and it's not healthy. So if they're teaching the exact same curriculum and they're giving kids black belts based on the same curriculum as adults, that's something to really worry about, because either those kids aren't being held to that standard or the adults are really only being held to the kids' standard. What about us? As I mentioned, we have a black belt, a Kung Fu for Kids black belt for kids, equals the beginner level of our curriculum for the teens and adults, which is our full curriculum. As you go through that, we have different sash levels that you can earn. We de-emphasize those a lot. By the time somebody gets to the black belt level in our school, we want them to have the feeling of, oh, belts really don't matter. Because at the end of the day, they don't. There's something used within the school to teach students to set goals, achieve smaller goals, to reach those goals, and that's all they really are. 16. Ask if the school participates in tournaments and if it's required. This is actually a big one. A lot of schools are very focused on point sparring tournaments, forms, katas, things that look really great that don't translate to real world self-defense. If that's something you're looking for, this might not be the school for you. Some schools, they require, like MMA, jiu-jitsu schools, a lot do, a lot don't, but some of them require that you enter competitions in order to move up the rank. They're very great martial arts, but maybe the competition thing is not something you want to do. Ask them how much of their time is focused on tournaments. Some schools, they spend so much time on tournaments, they develop favoritism among their students, and I get that. The students that show up all the time and work the hardest, it's easy for them to be your favorites. But in class, you can't treat them that way. You can't take time away from the kids in the non-tournament class to give to the kids in the tournament class. It's just not fair. So if a school is heavily involved in tournaments, it's something you may really want to look at the ratio of. Are they required? How much time is spent getting ready for tournaments? Ask them specifically, how do you keep the kids involved and motivated and excited that aren't involved in tournaments? That's a really big deal too. Knowing what you're walking into. And if you go into a school and there's trophies everywhere, you can be sure their focus is going to be very, very heavily on tournaments. And that may be for you. If it is, great. If it's not, you need to know. Again, my name is Carlton here at Marysville Martial Arts in Marysville, Washington. And I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I'm hoping you find these questions useful and they help you find the perfect school for yourself or for your child. If there's any questions you think we should be asking, any questions we didn't include, please let us know. And if there's any questions you have about our school and how we do things, also, please let us know. We'd love to answer them.